Vancouver, Washington. I spent the first 21 years of my life in this area, and I did a segment on Battleground yesterday, and now I'm talking about that nearby suburb, Portland's largest suburb, Vancouver. Now, a lot has changed over the years. Nowadays it has a population of 190,000, close to 200,000, but I was born in the mid 80s, and in 1990 it had about 105,000 people, but when you take into account the big annexations, a lot of that, so much of that before was just Clark County and places like Orchards and Minnehaha. But actually, Minnehaha, this is an annexation map. See, Minnehaha was part of the city limits of Vancouver in 1990, and where the city limits of Vancouver back then, as the 1990 census, only made up 46,000 people and extended to Mill Plain, just a little east of where the hospital is, kind of where the 7-Eleven and the current Walgreens is. There were no Walgreens in Vancouver till the early 2000s that I recall. And see the map here on Andreessen, where the old McDonald's and former Kmart location is. It looks like that was annexed, and only see parts of it heading east towards that part of Mill Plain were annexed, and most places west of there were obviously the downtown and the Minnehaha area was, and even places east of downtown towards the lake were annexed. But there's so much of Vancouver in the parts that were just Clark County and Orchards, and I'm going to talk some about Mill Plain and Salmon Creek too. Those seem to serve as, they seemed like they were really urban, but weren't incorporated. And they had a lot of the commercial stuff, and one place we were fond of, which was the steak burger, where I remember going when I was little, and it had miniature golf. And Salmon Creek was where my clinic was. Started going when I was in 1994, and later it became a big imposing medical center, part of the hospital, and Burger King, McDonald's, all the familiar names are there and have been there. But yeah, Orchards, which has the Vancouver address, starts where when 503 crosses 119, where that old Heartwood golf course was. And what I remember in the early days is that Rumors Restaurant and Lounge, you might remember, I think that closed down, and there's still a convenience store that I know of, and back in the day it was a Minute Mart back when I was little, and last time I remember I was about 11, and I remember being little, and there was a strip there with airplanes. And in Orchards, when you look up the hill from about a mile and you see where the utility department is in that copse of trees, it looked pretty imposing, I think. Now the Safeway Plaza's been there since day one, but you might know that plaza where the Lowe's is, and the Carl's Jr. and the former Boston's Pizza. I don't remember that being there until 2004 when I was about 17. And across the street, another staple of Orchards is that Fred Meyer Plaza, which also has a Sherry's and a Jack in the Box, and it had a Baskin Robbins as far back as I remember, but as far as I know, that's all still there. The Jack in the Box didn't open until quite a bit later, maybe the mid-2000s or early 2000s. And further down there, 117th, I remember there not being a Taco Bell, not being anything. I remember that just being an empty field. In the June of 1997 or so, it said, "Coming soon, another Taco Bell." And I remember that opening in August, and I remember that bank across the street. Used to be a Seafirst Bank, probably. And at the very corner of 117th, where it meets 4th Plain, I remember there being a place called Sunshine Pizza, like one of those pizza and video game places. I remember going when I was as young as 6, and when I was 8.5 and almost 13. I remember going there for end of basketball season pizza party with my brothers in 1995. And east of 117/503, there's that plaza with Planet Fitness, and there was a Blimpie there and a Little Caesars. But I remember when I was little, when I was about 6.5, that was like a Payless Drugs, which was kind of like a drugstore crossed with today what we think of as a Big Lots. And I remember being 6.5 and going there and getting our Aladdin cassette tape. And I remember there being a little family restaurant there I went to when I was in kindergarten. But I do remember Little Caesars there when I was in the second grade, when I was 7. And none of that was annexed into Vancouver until my last days living there. I remember and for a few months we lived at the Staybridge, which opened in 2001. And yeah, moved in 2008. But at the very end, I remember where the Y-Mart is, there was the LA Video, which was kind of the quintessence of the nostalgia I had when I was in the 1994, early 90s, of going there on Saturday night and renting videos, or before we went out of town to Spokane. And I remember the good old Y-Mart at the very end. And the Walmart that's there didn't open till the very end days. I remember living there. And the very first Walmart in Vancouver that I remember actually opened at the corner of that one at the corner of 503 and Mill Plain, and this is what Walmarts used to look like. So maybe the late 2000s. You used to have to go to Lake Oswego and other suburbs, and then soon the Jack in the Box there opened, and that plaza was like the Subway. And here's the Vancouver Mall of old, where there's Macy's. Used to be a Meyer and Frank from as far back as I remember to about 2003. Let me just show you a picture here. I'm so disorganized. Yeah, the Vancouver Mall opened in 1977, and I remember there not being a food court. The food court didn't open until the fall of 1993, but I remember there's the picture of the old Macy's where it was in Meyer and Frank. The McDonald's was kind of cute. It was off on its own, kind of standalone on the first floor, kind of by where the KB Toys was. Of course, there was a KB Toys I remember fondly too around there. I remember getting the Rescue of Thunder cameras with scenes from the movie and other neat toys and Happy Meals there. In 1993, the food court opened, and that was kind of a neat innovation. The McDonald's and Taco Bell and Paradise Bakery and Chinese place, Hot Dog on a Stick, those are the places I remember in the heyday. I seem to remember them all being there in 2007, 2008. And over time, ultimately, the McDonald's left too, and I remember Sparrow was there too. And now, I remember there being an IHOP from the time I was about 4 years old, so when I had my 11th birthday there, and I'm just looking for a picture to show you what IHOP used to look like to you people who might not be familiar, only familiar with the modern looks. And then after it closed in 1998, it became the Outback Steakhouse. And I remember the Disney store came in 1997 in the fall, but it wasn't nearly as big and neat as the one at Clackamas Town Center. Now the old Vancouver Plaza driver takes you to... Well, first I'll talk about Olive Garden across the street in the plaza with TJ Maxx. This is what the logo used to look like. And that opened in 1988. That was only like the 100s. It originally opened in 1982 in Orlando, and is part of the Darden Restaurant Company, which also used to own Red Lobster, which started a long time earlier, in Longhorn Steakhouse and other things. But if you're going east, well, the closest one was in Bakersfield in the LA area, and there was one in Vegas. But north of like Oklahoma City, the closest one heading east was a new one that opened in the Twin Cities area. And I remember TCBY being in that plaza, but I think it was overtaken by Jamba Juice, yeah. And in the other plaza where the Ross is, I remember there being a Tony Roma's from the time I was 9 to the time I was about 16, and up there where that Round Table Pizza is, I remember that since I was 9. It was probably there before, but right next door there was a Skipper's, and I most remember that when I was 9 years old, around Christmas time, but it lasted for a number of years, I think, and a number of years before then, probably. And also on that same Van Mall Plaza of the Vancouver Mall, I remember there being a Sizzler kind of off to the west side, and the Red Robin opened in about 1988, I'm thinking, and the Red Lobster opened in 1989. Oh, yeah. And this is what Red Lobster looked like from about 1985 to 1995. And later the IHOP opened on the Van Park Drive that goes towards Target. And across the street where the Hooligans Bar and Grill is, used to be at TGI Fridays. And I remember the Taco Bell being there from the time I was about 6. Probably still is there for all I know. But sadly the TGI Fridays closed in 2009, along with every TGI Fridays in Washington and Oregon. That's what Taco Bell used to look like there. And Target, where the Target Plaza is there, I remember if you're a 90s kid, you'll have fond memories of Discovery Zone, which only lasted from 89 to 99 before going bankrupt. I remember that there from on the corner of the southeast corner from the time I was about Subway in the 90s. So early 2000s sometime, maybe mid 2000s and before then, and before the 90s. And I have memories, definitely happy memories of going to Discovery Zone, which was like a place with this big indoor fancy climbing structure with, balls of things to climb on and swing around on, and pizza and stuff. And I remember going there for my friend's 8th birthday party, just weeks before my 8th birthday. That one closed down in 1998, I'm thinking. And then I remember a Hollywood Video in between there. Last time I remember it was 2006. And at the very end there was a Cub Foods for many years. And it became Winco Foods around 2000, I think. And I last remember it being a Winco Foods when I lived there, but I don't know what it is now. And right across that parking lot, good old Barnes & Noble. I remember that first opening, the first time I heard of it, late in 1995. I went there early to 1996. And it was kind of an interesting, exciting thing. And I remember I first knew about that author Stephen King, who I didn't care about at all. And that Vancouver Plaza 10 opened early in 1992. And later it became kind of a second-run theater, I think. But I remember PetSmart being there from 1994 when I was about 8. And the Chuck E. Cheese, it didn't used to be there. It wasn't there until the summer of 2001. And when it was opening, it was pretty exciting, and opened in June, I believe. And back to the Orchards Plaza a little east, the Wendy's is still there. It was there since I remember being little, and where Joanne Fabrics is. I remember that being in Albertsons when I was 8 years old till I was about 16. It was probably before then too. And it became a PetSmart or Petco, and there was a video store we were fond of called Moyer's Video. I went there from the time I was about 9 to about 14 or 15. And the Home Depot, I'm assuming it is, used to be another chain called Home Base. I don't remember that since about 2001. And I understand now across the street there's a Walgreens. That used to be a beloved mom and pop second-hand store called Lick's Bargain Center. I remember getting Papa books and later the Garth Brooks No Fences CD when I was much older, when I was almost 18. And they had snacks and, non-refrigerated, non-perishable food and drinks. And then there was a trading card shop we were fond of. We knew a guy named Woody. It was called Woody Sports Cards. I remember first going there in 1994 into early in 1997, and they had a branch up in Vancouver when I was about 8. I don't think that lasted too long. His wife owned that one. His wife, Janet. And on the corner, there was an A&W. And on Gare Road, that Burger King's been there as long as I can remember. I think it opened in 1986. And right across the street, you can see it on the 503 highway going towards the 205 interchange. It's the north, a place called China Bowl. Apparently I went there when I was really little, but when I was almost 8, I saw it, and I thought it looked interesting. It sounded like a bowling alley and a Chinese restaurant, and my mom told me apparently I had been there when I was little, and I wanted to go there for a long time, and it was kind of funny how I wanted to go to just some Chinese restaurant. I want to go there for my 9th birthday, and my mom's like, you might be sorry you went there, and I'm like, why, is it not that good? She's like, it's not great, but yeah, I went there about 2.5 weeks after my 9th birthday when my late grandpa was in town, and we sat and had drinks and got food to go, and I found out about the Zodiac. Heading west a little way on 4th Plain, you might know the old Dairy Queen. That's really been there forever. And the little plaza that comes up on the left, I remember Smokey's Pizza, which had a kind of a friendly-looking devil guy and pretty good food. They also had one up in Hazeldale, maybe several locations. But then across the street, there was an old Denny's with the old logo they got rid of in the 80s. And I remember that being there until I was 17. But Vancouver, Washington doesn't have any Denny's now. They had one on Mill Plain, and it closed in 1998 in the place that became King's Buffet. Now, I remember that's what Applebee's looked like from 1985 to about 2007. It changed, but it kept this look for a while at most locations. And that was the first one in Vancouver. It opened in 1996. And it was right across from Sweet Tomatoes, a place we like to go a lot. Did I mention that? I can't keep track of it. Did I mention the Weimar at the end of 4th Lane? Yes, I did. I believe. Or Sunshine Pizza, the place kind of kitty corner to that Payless store where the Planet Fitness is. We used to have pizza parties there, and I remember going there when I was 6 and 8.5 and 12.5, and had video games and stuff. Probably did. But that Golden Corral at the corner definitely wasn't there till about 6 years ago. Yeah, and the Vancouver Mall had a movie theater, which is now office buildings off to the side, and it ran from 1978 to late 1999. The last thing I remember seeing there was the Iron Giant. And before Vancouver Plaza 10 and Cascade 16 on the east opened, I remember there being one called Cascade 4, kind of where the Fred Meyer was, an old brick building. It ran from 78 to 99 also, and the last thing I remember seeing there was October Sky. And on the last day late in 1998, Cascade Park 16 opened, and I remember seeing A Bug's Life on the last day of 1998. And then later in 2004, they opened the second Red Robin in Vancouver, and I remember spending my 18th birthday there. And soon, if not by then, Borders Books opened around there, and that shoe store. And Ruby Tuesday was open by early in 1999, because I remember a teacher at school worked there on the weekend. Now when you're talking about going down Ward Road, where it meets 162nd, there used to be nothing but trees and houses, but during my last days there, I remember they built a Walgreens right at that intersection, and going up to where the McMinimans is on 162nd and 4th Plain maybe. I remember there being a Blockbuster Video in 1995, and before then until about 2003 too. And across the street there's a nice grocery store I was fond of called QVC, and the Wendy's there. Later that QVC became a Wilco, I guess. Good old Vancouver. That east side I think captures the essence of nostalgia, where things may have changed, but I still kind of see the spirit of that in those kind of retro-ish places. Now, downtown I think hasn't changed a lot except for I think the postmodern AMC 12 came there about 2001 or 2002. And we always like going to Vancouver Pizza down there. There was the old Kiggins Theater, which I last remember in 2007, and a really neat addition was along the river in 1998 was Joe's Crab Shack, and right next door was another McMinimans. But I saw a big development that didn't used to be there around when I was visiting early in 2011, a new Fred Meyer Plaza with another Red Robin and some modern fast casual type places maybe. And later in 2008 they opened a second Olive Garden at the corner of 4th Plain and 162nd. And in that same plaza, they opened a Best Buy and like a Panera. That's when it happened. And IHOP in the mall reopened late 1999 on Vancouver Plaza Drive. But the one on south on 162nd, and I don't remember until I was about 16, but it might have opened before then. But I do remember the Fred Meyer on Fisher's Landing and the McDonald's when I was about 10 and a half. And before it got annexed, I think that whole area was called Cascade Park in Fisher's Landing. And the YMCA by Gare Road in Orchards, which that's where Vancouver, the city limits started when it was annexed, was right where that Burger King and McDonald's was on that side of the road. That complex with YMCA and Applebee's didn't open until the summer of 2001. And I remember going and working out there a lot in 2003, and I have some fond memories of that Applebee's, going there at night in the summer of 2006 with my mom for dessert. And in 2001, the Applebee's also opened in Hazeldale, and in 2008, one opened, or 2009 or 2007, they opened the one in Salmon Creek. And across the street where that store is, it used to be a food pavilion. It became a Zupan's Market. I remember when I was in 1997, and I don't know what happened to it now. But Hazeldale has always been kind of a unincorporated area that seemed pretty urban and like it would make Vancouver almost a big city. Last time I remember being there, we stayed at the Alani Casino and Hotel up north. That was about not even 2 months ago. And going even further east, the Best Buy, they built a Burger King later. And the QVC, I remember relocating when I was almost 20 to the southeast side of Vancouver, almost to Camas, I think. Yeah, and I remember on West Plain, there's always been that grocery outlet we used to call Canned Food Warehouse, and that old roller skating rink. I remember going when I was little, especially when I was 7 in the 2nd grade, which closed. And I think the Fred Meyer didn't open till later on that West 4th Plain where it kind of merges with Mill Plain. Remember an arts and crafts store in a plaza nearby, and they had a Subway there, but I don't remember that Subway till I lived at Staybridge. Yeah, Vancouver kind of just seemed like a suburb. It seemed like it had a lot of people, like it was an urban area, but there wasn't a whole lot to do there. I mean, there was that skating rink and a place to ride go-karts up in Salmon Creek, and later, and they did build a Chuck E. Cheese in 2001. Like I said, And I remember when I was about 6 going to downtown Vancouver to a second-hand store called Spanky's with a goose on it. And the Fisher's Landing place where the G.I. Joe's was. And the McDonald's, I remember that from the time I was really little. And they later built a Walgreens there. As far as I know, it's still there, but I don't know if it's still called G.I. Joe's. And another staple seemed to be just off 112th. You can see it from the freeway at Smokey's Bar and Grill. And somewhere in one of those, not on the main arterials, but kind of between Mill Plain and 4th Plain to the east of the 205, might have been around Burton, was the DMV where I took my test 4 times. And there's a Safeway down there somewhere in a subway, but I'm guessing that didn't come till later in the days. I lived there when I was when I was a teenager, maybe. You know, my last days there, that area east of 117 and 503 was finally annexed. And finally, I do remember when I was about 15, they built it at the corner of 162nd and 4th Plain, where that Safeway Plaza is. That's finally when it opened with the pizza place and the New York Burrito where my brother worked when he was going to be a senior in the Subway. And it seems like they later put in a Subway, McDonald's there. And Silver Dragon, which was another staple in Battleground that opened in 1978, also operated on West 4th Plain, kind of by the lower skating rink and grocery outlet area, but it might still be open, I don't know. What am I missing here? I don't think there are those hotels on Fisher's Landing on South 162nd towards the Columbia River. At least till 2004. And I remember that at the corner of 172nd and 72nd and 4th Plain where the Arby's is, that used to be actually an Arctic Circle. And I remember when I was in the early summer of 95, it was an Arby's. And there used to be there was always a Kmart right in that plaza, but I last remember that in 2002. And they turned it into some church-type building, and they built a Walgreens down there. But I remember having my 4th birthday party at that McDonald's and always going bowling up there too. And that also kind of captured that nostalgia essence I'm talking about. It reminded me of being in 2nd grade in the 80s and late 70s, and whole nostalgia feeling, which it might not necessarily completely look like those eras, but the same spirit was there, I think. And then they also annexed a place where on 72nd where it meets up with Patten Parkway. Patten Parkway wasn't finished till 2000 either, and that place where there's Home Depot and Wendy's and Krispy Kreme and stuff. I don't remember that till 2001, but I have fond memories of it when we were, particularly in my late teens and my last days living in Battleground. And then 2006 or so is when they built that Costco and Burger King out there too. And go up the hills on 72nd and down the hill, that Safeway Plaza with the Subway and former video store. It seems it opened around 2000. And where the Valley Village was, where that Loans place was, I remember that being a taco time. I don't know when it closed, actually, but I don't think it was a taco time when I was living there. Well, that's all. I hope you really enjoyed this enriching sentimental look of Vancouver and how it's grown. Next, I'll talk about Spokane and Idaho Falls and Billings, Montana's largest city.